I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. Could I get approval of the agenda? Could I get a motion to approve the agenda and any alternatives? Tim, do we have a second? Pam, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Next, I would like to have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of July 10th, 2014. Do I have a motion? Carla, do I have a second? Karen, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Next on our agenda is the public comments, and I'd like to read a statement before the public comments. You'll notice if you looked out in the hallway, we have new comment sheets, and we'd like to teach the public to use those. But for tonight, this meeting is being held in public according to the open meeting law. It is not a public participation meeting. As a board, we value input from the public and have time in the agenda when we provide for public comment. Rather than have 2 times in the agenda for public comment, we will not require the public to wait if they have a comment on a non-agenda item. So this public comment period will be for the agenda and non-agenda items. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less so that all who wish to speak may have an opportunity to do so. Any questions posed to the board may receive a response from the superintendent in writing. If you have a specific concern, we ask that you first try to resolve your issue at the building level, then the administration level before presenting to the board. And addressing the board, we would ask that you refrain from identifying staff members or community members by name and to maintain a level of civility. If you have a question, please provide a written copy to the district clerk so that an appropriate response can be prepared. We would ask that you stand and give your name and address before addressing the board. At this time, is there anyone who would like to make a public comment or question? Jerry?
We would ask you that if you can come up to the table. We're kind of fooling around with a little bit new format here. We want you to feel comfortable and relaxed.
Good, because I'm going to interrogate you, Jerry.
I'll talk loud. Jerry Myler, 6106 Lincoln Road. I have some comments regarding the year-end budget and financial reports. Since the OSC audit 2 years ago, our school district has generated operating surpluses greater than 6% both years. The New York State guideline goal is 4%. In real money, we generated a surplus of $2.7 million this year and $2.9 million next year. At 4%, that number should be $1.7 million. $2.7 million should not be acceptable. I've spoken to many members of this board, and they have all assured me that this year will be different. I hope truly that this will be. But in order for it to be different, we need to initiate change now, not in 7 months when we won't have enough time. So rather than just complain, though, I'd like to offer a couple of suggestions to be part of the solution, not the problem. First, I'd like to see the district create a budget committee with oversight and veto authority. This will take time to put in place. It will not happen in 7 months. It needs to be talked about at the next meeting. I would like to see that put on the agenda for next meeting to discuss what it would take to create a budget committee. Second, I would like to see the board ask for and implement an interim spending plan for this school year. I have heard repeatedly about our zero-based budgeting, only to see the same formulas generate the same faulty answers for the last 2 years. If the formulas need to be reworked, let's try it now to see if the changes work. The revised spending plan would not be binding. The only thing that's binding is what was passed in the election. It would simply be a tool to see if the proposed changes give better results. I'm sure there are a number of other actions we could take, but I really feel that we need to have a sense of urgency so that we don't make the same mistakes again next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Are you giving a copy of your comments to Kathy? Thank you.
Beth Peters, school counselor, Freewell Elementary School. I don't have a public comment. I have a point of information. I had confirmed to have Penny Gugino on the agenda for tonight for recognition from the Finger Lake Tobacco Action Coalition of the Finger Lakes to the Wayne School Board. And I don't see it on here, so I'm not sure how to proceed.
So it's a representative, you're recommending?
I had spoken with
You did,
Yes.
and I asked you to touch base with me before the meeting so I
Oh,
could
I
have
thought
some
we were
details.
confirmed.
I didn't
Okay.
have a name or anything.
Oh, you did.
So I think just
So-
moving forward, if you were to
We can
put down in writing
we can still do it, or we can wait till the next board meeting. I just,
put it on the agenda probably for the next board meeting?
okay, it's a quick recognition.
Yep.
So you want it on for the next meeting?
Yes, we can honor that.
Is the individual here tonight?
Yes. We were told to come tonight, so we came. So I wasn't sure what to do.
It's fine.
So,
Let's go ahead and recognize the individual.
do you want to do it now, or do you want us to wait?
Let's do it right now.
Well, she would like to recognize you.
Pardon?
Recognition for you.
Oh, it's
She would like to
recognition.
recognize you.
Oh, well, certainly we'll do it.
Well, I would like to introduce Penny Gugino from the Tobacco Action Coalition of Finger Lakes.
Thank you very much. As she said, I'm Penny Gugino, Director for the Coalition of the Finger Lakes, and I work for the American Lung Association, and our coalition educates communities about the dangers of tobacco and educates children. We're here to recognize the Wayne Central School District for their support in educating our community and giving our children the chance to advocate for change to protect them from tobacco. So this recognition is for the Wayne Central Middle School and the elementary school, and the specific staff that have supported that are Ms. Peters from the elementary school, Ms. Mateo from the middle school, and Mr. Melisani from the middle school. So we would like to thank you for the support, as well as looking forward to continued relationship with the school with our initiatives of educating communities and helping children to refrain from using tobacco. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You get a picture.
Penny, are you part? Do you want me to just stand right here?
Honey, are you part of the Lung Association?
I work for the American Lung Association, and the Tobacco Action Coalition of the Finger Lakes is a grant-funded program from the state of New York, tobacco control program. So we work, there are community partners throughout the entire state working on them.
You have no idea when I see a young person with a cigarette, what it does to me.
Great, let's touch base again.
You just recruited.
No. I got enough on my plate. But I just think, oh, are you that stupid?
Well, and the other thing she didn't tell you was that there's some new things on the horizon for next year with a program called Reality Check. And they're going to be hiring a coordinator, and we hope that Wayne Central becomes much more involved with that process and as student involvement.
I'd just like to say, Penny, I apologize for the confusion. I'm the new superintendent, and somehow I missed that. But I really appreciate you coming, and I'm glad you took the time to push it forward. And thank you so much, because I believe it's a great, worthy cause.
Well, thank you for your
coming.
time, and we commend you for your support of the program.
So I
Thank you
apologize
again.
for the
Thank you.
confusion.
Enjoy the rest of your summer, Beth.
Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment at this time? If not, next on the agenda are board member comments. Are there any board members who would like to make a comment?
I'll go ahead. The school district received what in essence, I guess you would call it a thank you letter from one of our foreign exchange students. And John was kind enough to pass it on to the board. And I'm actually going to take a shot at reading this. I should have typed it out first, but it's a great letter, and I thought it was worth sharing with the audience tonight. It says, "Dear Wayne Central School District, this year I was lucky enough to spend my exchange year here at Wayne Central. I can't even explain how successful this year was. First of all, I have been part of a great community with only open and nice people that have helped me with anything I needed help with. I feel honored to call myself an alumni of Wayne Central. This school really changed my life with the teachers that were open and helpful, a staff that were kind, and the students were very including. So many people were so kind and open that it really inspired me. The liaison program by Mr. Van Nostrand really helped me, and I appreciated that program very much. I just want to thank all of you for making this year possible for me and everything you have done for me. Wayne Central is a great school that has taught me so much. I will miss the school and this community dearly. Thank you so much. Best regards, Anne Nudeland, I think, from Norway. And I just thought that was a spectacular letter that said a lot for not only our staff, but the students as well. So I wanted to share that.
Are there any other board member comments?
I have a quick one.
Go ahead.
Not this weekend, but the following weekend, I'll be going down to Holton with our varsity and junior varsity soccer team. So I'll give you guys a report on how we look.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I would like to extend condolences to the family of Pat Fisher. Pat recently passed away. Pat was a member of the Wayne Central family for 22 years when she was employed at the Ontario Primary School in the library. And we extend condolences to her family. And also to the family of Anna Rose Chauve. She is was a senior to be at Wayne Central High School. She tragically drowned last weekend in a accident up in Pulaski and Lake Ontario. So condolences to both those families. Okay, at this point, I will turn it over to our new superintendent.
I'm going to come up in the front and address the board. As we progress, hopefully our superintendent report will be more instructional in nature, but we had a couple of things that we wanted to talk about today. And under superintendent's reports, web feedback process, the board had instructed me to take a look at a way to make our web page more user-friendly for community response and for community input. So working with Barb and Amy, we found a way that we can very quickly add a button on the left-hand side of our web page that says contact the student and the school board. We can enact this pretty quickly, and what it means is that anyone who gets on our website can come over here, click on contact the student board on our web page, and they will get a contact the board sheet like this. They can fill out the name, email address, their comment or question, phone numbers, and they can, with one click, send it to all 9 board members. So that's one of the things that we were asked to look into, and I think we can do that literally within a couple days if it's something the board desires. What I would like is the board to think a little bit about if that's something, have some discussion if that's something you'd like us to do. But I think we have to look also at the process of responding to this. Had an opportunity to talk with Ron as we were preparing for the agenda meeting, and we talked a little bit about what I would encourage the board to consider, that if a statement, if it's a question or concern that addresses the board, that through Ron or through discussion, Ron's designee would answer on behalf of the board. If it's a question that's directly related to operations of the district, that would be forwarded to the superintendent's office, and I would get the appropriate people to address that comment or question. So with that said, looking for any dialogue or discussion you guys might have on that.
I just have a question. So they get on that and they send it and it comes to our email boxes, each and every one of us. Is there any way to put it into instead of each, because like if we got 100 of them, not that I anticipate that, but I mean, now it bogs down our emails and it takes us forever to get through them all. Is there any way to put them in a separate email to where we can go in and look at them that way?
I mean, we may be able to put it into the portal.
Yeah, I mean, rather than bogging down, our business stuff, keep our public comments somewhere else.
And to answer that question, I think
find that there's
we
not
could
that
provide
much.
an option.
Probably,
The
but
question is, does it work for you guys?
I can't see that far, John. It says name, email address. What's the third box?
I can't see this, I gotta get a little. We're working as the next conversation will be, but you got name, email address, phone number, comment or question, and then enter the number below to submit, this is a security code, so
Right.
you gotta kind of type in the code to make sure that people aren't just bombing us. So it's name, email address, phone number, comment or question, and then submit.
Would there be a subject, should there be a subject that would pop up in our subject line, or what will pop up in our subject line? Anything, or
That's a
just?
good question.
It depends on how we set it up. One thing we could do, if you wanted it to come to a separate email, then it would just be that, and it would be community comments, your subject line. But we could also create a form database where everything would go into that, and then I could actually sort them for you if you wanted, and put them in subjects, like if it's facilities, it's something else.
I'm sure we could designate, we could designate a subject lines that would key you to
People
that.
can select, we could be more specific and let people select.
But we don't want to create more work.
I have maybe a different suggestion. I would prefer to have it come to my email because I don't want one more thing to check. And if we could put in the subject, public comment or something like that, so you can do a sort by subject, and then you can read around it if you're looking for something else. But I mean, having no idea how many are going to come, I know I can check. I now, thanks to some help from people in the district, can check my board email on my phone and on my iPad. I can't necessarily look at the portal everywhere that I am.
Again, we're working on behalf of the board. Right here, Dennis looking for a portal drop. I see someone saying send it directly to my email.
I think keep
Well,
it
and the
simple.
other thing I would suggest is, and this, I don't know if this is practical, but you said, some of these may be operational, some may actually be for the board, which I fully anticipate is going to happen. Is there any way for that sort to happen before it goes to everybody?
Well, Ron had mentioned that we could pre-screen. My concern is I would rather have the board see everything and push it back, or the board sees everything and I could contact Ron or a designee and say, I think this is operational, I think this is operational.
Because before everybody spends a whole lot of time trying to figure out what the answer is, if it's not ours to figure out.
Right.
Well, I think by reading that question, you know.
People may or may
Maybe
not.
something could be put on the form informing the person that's going to fill it out of what kind of information should be submitted to the board and what should be submitted to administration.
Yeah, one thing I
Prior to
think,
doing it.
one thing we definitely want is if the email is intended for the board, I think a copy should automatically go to John as
I'm fine with
superintendent.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
I think the board's interest in the conversation was to give our community access to the board, which I think is a great idea. And so, we're just kind of thinking, we're trying to come up with the simplest way to do that for you, again, without bogging you down either. And again, we don't know what it will generate.
Yeah, I just think somehow or other we need to let everybody know if it's being worked by the administration or if we need to work it as a board.
Why don't we wait, it goes right, maybe you can give us the direction if you're sending it on.
Yes.
And just react to it first.
Yes, I can always send an email to the
I think keep it simple
board
and
and
it
say,
comes in on the email and not to a portal, or just so we can.
We have the ability to kind of tailor it to your need. It can go to all board members, it could go to a designee. You can rotate it,
We talked last year about putting something on the board part of the website where letting people know what is the proper channel, where things should go, and maybe we can do that to educate them a little bit better. So we get the appropriate things.
That might be the way to do it when you click on the button, rather than going to this page. You go to a page that says, this is what it should be used for, click to proceed, and then you get that. So kind of make people...
We can do that. We can fool around with a couple, some more prototypes that would prompt them, if this is where you're headed, you're in the right spot, if not,
And there's a couple suggestions floating around about pre-screening or going to a different portal or email. I would say let's keep this as easy and as simple as possible, and then if it needs to be tweaked, if we're buried, which in all likelihood we won't be, then we can tweak it. But I like the idea of sending it to all board members, including John, and then going to the emails. I don't want another one to check. I lost track of how many I have now. And then from there, if we need to tweak it, if we're getting buried, if we're getting 8 emails a month and 7 of them are for the district, then we can look at, well, maybe we should pre-screening them. I don't want you to spend a lot of time sorting. I don't want you to spend a lot of time figuring out how this thing looks. Let's keep it simple. Let's get something in place, and then tweak it if we need to.
Do you have enough direction from us, John?
I think so. We'll get together, Amy, and try to put something together. But I think in general, this will, I like what Phil's saying. We can get out and test it, and we can see if we get overloaded or if people are putting more. My sense is people, it's contact the board. My sense is people will hopefully.
And we will still maintain, there's somewhere right now, there's an email address to shoot it to all the board members.
Yeah.
Yes.
That will also be in place. So it's just,
And also, I think the public is aware, and if not, we can reinforce it. But they can contact you anytime at your individual email. You have them all listed.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have, most of us have our phone
And phone numbers. So
Yeah.
this is just giving them another access point that's a little bit, again, more direct for them to use if they choose to. So I think we've got some direction. We can focus on a couple things. So moving down to report B, again talks about looking for a little bit more discussion on meeting locations. And I would like to make some suggestions to the board and for your input and for your discussion that I think it would be very beneficial if the board would consider keeping our meeting place consistent in one place, preferably the high school cafeteria, where we could create a board setting that would be conducive to good communication among ourselves and good communication and input from community. They would know where the meeting is on a regular basis. I think we can do a much better job of filming those meetings and getting them out and do a better job, professional job of getting them broadcasted out, which is another interest of the board in terms of communicating. I think when the community understands the meetings are consistently in the same place, it's a little bit easier for them to get to. They're not following us around the district. I think one of from my entry conversations, I think one of the reasons we rotated meetings, and some districts still do that, is because there's a need for board members to get to every building. And that kind of fulfills that need, but I think I would like to see the board consider visiting buildings, filling that obligation, visiting buildings during the day when we have children and staff in the building, so that you can get a real sense of what's going on and how things are going. And we can provide opportunities throughout the year to meet different schedules so that all board members can get a chance to visit buildings at different times throughout the year and get a sense of what's really going on there. What I like to say, take a bus, eat a lunch, eat a breakfast, get a real feel for what's going on in our buildings, get to stop into some rooms, get to see some programs, things that are going on. I had this conversation with our administrative council, and they were very supportive of that. And they felt that would be a great way to connect with board members as we move forward. I do think being consistent with the meetings will be helpful. It's more efficient and will be helpful, I think helpful from a communication perspective as well. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, get a sense of what the board felt, and see if that's something that you'd like to do.
Can you real quick, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, administrative council, that does include the principals?
That's all of the principals, our department leaders, our buildings and grounds, transportation, all of our administrative team.
They were okay with that?
They were okay with that.
Without hesitation, John, because it was previously told to some of the board members that they didn't want us. And I never got that feeling, but I was advised that that was the case. And I didn't get that feeling when I made my visit in March. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody is on board and they don't have reservations. We're coming in just to see what's going on. We're not coming in to, do an evaluation on your...
I didn't get the sense at all from our meeting that there was any reservations. I think the administrative team, primarily principals, were interested in having the board in their buildings. I think, I'm editorializing here a little bit, and I think that, like anyone else, they just like to know if there's a schedule, when you're coming,
Right.
Because I think they want to put out the best, put out the best for you as well.
Want to put on a good show for us.
And they want you to feel comfortable, and they want, and so I think that's, really the only, I think the only concern that I.
Is this something that would be like certain dates that whoever could attend come, and so it's not like the whole board's doing it this because that might be kind of hard with everybody's schedule. So it's going to be like this is an opportunity, and
I would leave that up to the board. I think there's a lot of flexibility there.
Right.
We could have a board day, like I said, and what I found in doing this in the past, it's hard to get 9 board members. It's hard to get 7 board members on the same page. I'm not sure we'll ever get 9 board members. So we might do a couple different, a couple different trips. We throw some things out there, some dates. We put some things together, and yeah, we might have 3 for one day, and 4 might go on a different day. And but I think that the goal would be to get you out to the buildings and be able to see our kids in action.
Are we not already meeting requirements by when we attend activities at different buildings? Is that part of?
You probably could make a case for that. I mean, it's a very loose requirement, but you're supposed to be in the buildings looking at,
Instruction.
looking at from a facilities perspective.
Right.
So, but again, I think our goal is to get you in the buildings to see what we're doing.
I like it.
I like the idea of having it at the same place every
So
time.
do I.
Yeah.
I imagine Bob Miller likes it very much too.
Well, many times, I came to a lot of board meetings before, and there were a few times where I
Go to the wrong building.
I went to the wrong building, or
My one question is, if we have it, I thought part of the advantage of having it in one spot was not to have set up and tear down and have people have to do that. But if we do it in the cafeteria, we have to do that anyways because it has to be a cafeteria.
Yeah, and that's part of it, but I'm not sure that that's the main part. You can set the cafeteria up, and the furniture in the high school and all of this type of stuff can then be stored right there, so it doesn't have to be put on a truck and moved from building to building. There's still breakdowns and setup, but I think we could create the environment a little bit more permanent, and with appropriate backdrops and skirts, that we wouldn't have to be doing a road show with it all over. I mean, it could just go. And I haven't talked to Mike about this yet, but it would need, and maybe Bob would know better. I mean, it would require some space to house, the board apparatus, but it's still a little different than taking that whole set and moving it from building to building.
probably use the superintendent's office.
Well, however we set it up, whether, obviously for those who have become, this is kind of a nice little half move. And that's what I know most places, whether it's the town or another school, they do have it on a crescent. So we can all see each other. And it's, I think it looks very professional. The one thing that I noticed when I was watching the videos is that, the chairs are upside down with the legs poking up, and then we looked like we had tentacles coming up out of our head, and it just looked not real professional. So however we arrange it, either with our backs to the windows or our backs to the arched walls, that we not have, that we be conscious of what's behind us. And I really like this Archie thing. So I don't know if we can fill in the pies or, get a table that'll fix it or whatever, but I think it's our meeting and we need to see each other. And I know Ron had a horrible time trying to see who was making motions and everything at the last board meeting. And I had suggested it last year that we kind of wing it out. We did it. I guess some people didn't like it, so we went back to the U. But I don't know. How's it for you, Ron? Can you see us all?
I can see everybody, yes.
Really?
It's a lot easier, yeah. Yeah, as long as I remember everybody's name, we're fine.
suggestions, I like it.
I don't believe we need a motion, but what I'm hearing is that we'll move forward and try to create
Do we need to check with the guy behind you?
we'll check after the meeting. We'll move forward and try to create a
Uniform.
space that'll be, that'll be something that, you feel good about that. And again, the consistency for our community, where we're going to be. So I think if there's no more questions on those two topics, then I'm going to turn this over back to Ron for board business.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Next, I would like to have a motion to appoint Jerry Myler to the Audit Committee. Can I have a motion? Phil first.
Yeah.
Matt second. Any discussion? All in favor? Jerry, would you come forward, please? I believe Kathy has an oath to administer to you.
No, you've got it.
Oh, I have it? Okay. I do have it.
I brought my glasses.
Didn't recognize about the tropical shirt.
The undersigned does solemnly swear that he will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that he will faithfully discharge the duties of a member of the Audit Committee for the Wayne Central School District to the best of his ability.
I do.
I think you have to read it, Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
Oh, okay.
I, Jerry Miley,
I, Jerry Mallard, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a member of the Audit Committee for the Wayne Central School District to the best of my ability.
thank you. Today's the 14th.
Congratulations.
Those of us that went to work this morning all know that.
What four-letter word was he talking about? Thank you,
He
Jerry.
took that out of his vocabulary.
Next on board business is to set or establish the 2014-15 tax levy. In the packet is a recommendation from Mr. Adsett regarding use of surplus funds from the 2013-14 school year. I'm going to ask Jerry and John John and Greg to speak to this recommendation.
So in your packet, in the board packet tonight is the information to set the tax rates for the 2014-2015 school year. Also included in this part of the agenda is a proposed revised revenue sheet dated 8/14. And now that we're at the end of the school year, we have not had our audit done yet, but some of our numbers have changed a little bit. We ended up in a little bit more favorable financial position. And initially we had, throughout the budget process, talked about giving the money that was left over, that was unspent at the end of the school year, back to the taxpayers as an appropriation to next year. Those estimations throughout the budget process were coming in at $2.2 million. Now that we've pretty much closed our books, even though they have not been audited, that number is sitting at 2.7. So to be consistent with the discussions we had during the budget process and what we did last year, we're recommending revising the revenues to increase the appropriated fund balance number to 2.7, which is here. And then, since that number has gone up by 500,000, we're recommending reducing the amount of reliance we have on our reserves. This number used to be at 850. This number is now at 350. And at the advice of our auditors, they've recommended that the board should adopt the revised revenue schedule prior to setting the tax rates, since it's different than what was proposed at budget time. So at your places, you have both the revenue sheet from when the board adopted the budget back in April and the current one there. So the amount of money being levied is still staying flat at $19,672,192. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there questions for Greg or John?
Greg, this
Yes.
is not my forte.
Mhm.
My last name is not Myler. So if I'm understanding this right, instead of the reserves coming out of, what is that, the retirement?
Mhm.
Okay? We're putting that money into there?
What we're doing is, since we have more...
We're not taking the money out of it?
Correct. We're taking less money from the reserves than what we originally proposed, because we have more money left at the end of the year than we estimated during the budget time.
Okay.
I needed to hear the same thing. I had the same question.
Okay.
So we're
Sometimes
still-
it takes me
Carla,
two
we're still
times.
using over $500,000 to fund next year's budget from our reserves. Initially, we were using closer to $1 million.
Right, okay.
And we want to get our reliance on our reserves to fund day-to-day operations less and less and less, because that is one-time money.
Right. And once that money is in there, like now it's in the retirement reserve, what can that money be used for?
That money can be used to offset contributions to the employees' retirement system. There is no reserve for the TRS. If at any point in time the board feels the reserve is overfunded, I believe by board action that money can be moved. I want to check the regulations, but I'm pretty sure that the board has the ability, if they feel that the reserve is overfunded, to move the money to a different reserve.
All right, and if you received what the, I don't know what you call it, but it's 16, 17% of that, you know, that we have to put in for the teachers? Did it go up? Did it go down?
The employees' retirement system rate actually went down, I think it was 0.6% from the year before. But we just got information for the teachers' retirement system, where next year it's going up 8%, I believe, is the early projections. The rate's not going up 8%, but when you take the rate increase and then it's applied to a larger salary number, the cost is going up 8%.
So based on what you said about the, we don't want to rely on reserves because it's one-time money, would it be a goal in our budget process to not have a transfer from the reserves in it to begin with, or?
Yes, yes.
Say that again?
Wean ourselves
We
off
want
the
zero.
reserve money.
Don't account
It
on
is a
reserves
wash
for our
for
budget.
Stop.
Okay.
Stop
Either
paying
they're
for our daily
for
expenses
their
from our
purpose, and
savings
we give them the
account.
amounts we need, and they'll do their job.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if you think back to when the state's economy fell apart 5 years ago, it was our strategy to use our reserves because they were at healthy levels. And rather than cut program, when our state aid was reduced by $2 million, we were using our reserves to maintain program and staff members. And it was our plan to continue to do that until the state aid started to recover. It has started to recover. We still are down from what we got 5 years ago, but we're relying less and less on our reserves, which is good for our overall financial position and health of our financial position.
Greg, like, basically, we're keeping the tax rate, the tax levy stable.
The same, that's correct.
We have an opportunity to decrease it. But by keeping it stable, are we not protecting the district in the years to come if, God forbid, the state comes up with some other gimmick similar to the gap elimination aid?
Yes. See, one of the things when the state a couple years ago put the tax cap legislation in place, there's now a formula. Before, the board had the ability to make the decision how much they wanted that levy to go up. And then the voters had the ability, by voting on the budget, to make the ultimate decision. Now what the state has done is there's a formula that's applied that restricts the ability on how much it could go up. That formula for the 14-15 school year, we could have raised our tax levy almost $1 million. We didn't need to do that, so we have not done that. But the point that I'm trying to make is when we look at when we get into the budget process for next year, of the $1 million that we didn't need this year, we can only recoup about 30% of that by the formula. The other 70% is gone. That is a much different playing field than what it used to be. So they've really taken total control of the levy out of the hands of the board and the public, and
And if we lowered
and legislated it.
And if we lowered the tax levy with some of this money, not only would we lose the 70%, but we would lose the amount that we lowered the levy this year. So that is,
Right.
I'll be very cautious about
Right.
I know.
Now, you can excead that formula by a supermajority,
Right.
but if you follow the paper, that wasn't
Ron
on
DeCoy
Coy's
didn't
been in
make
that
it.
position. You know, that their budget passed the first time, but not by the supermajority, and they were looking to go beyond the cap. They put forward a second budget vote that also passed, but not by the supermajority. Once that happens, they are not allowed to raise their levy at all, which is what we're doing. But for them, they have to cut almost $2 million out of their program. And it's been pretty, some of the cuts are severe. They modified sports, field trips. I mean, you know, there's been a lot of information in the paper about what's going on there. So those are some of the risks that you take, that, and, you know, that the levy put us in.
And is it fair to say, again, I'm going to use this excuse once in a while, based on my newness, that we have been reducing our fund balance over the last couple
Yes.
of years? And it is our goal to continue to do that.
Right, since the comptroller's audit, and I don't have the chart in front of me, but during the budget process, we showed you our reserve balances from 4 or 5 years ago to what they are now, and they have consistently gone down. We are still in strong financial shape, but we have lowered the amount of money that we have put aside. In the last 2 years, we've given back if you look at the applied levy offset number, typically we're in the $1 million number. We've given back almost 2.9 and 2.7 back to the public, which was part of what we heard during the response to the comptroller's audit. Some of the criticisms from I think our community was, we understand that the budget's an estimate, but if you have the money left over, give it back. And we're in a financial position where we can absolutely do that. So we've tried to be responsive in that aspect.
Greg, that applied levy offset, is that above the 4%? That's what's above the 4% amount?
Well, the 4% is money that is undesignated. So the 2.9, the 2.7, that has nothing to do with the 4%. We actually have about $1.8 million. If you take 4% of $44 million,
right,
we're allowed to have that money set aside without any designation for its use to cover unanticipated expenditures. It's not part of our budget. It's sitting in like in a cash account. So even though we've had this amount of money left over, we have never kept over the 4%. And you know, if you have it in reserves, that's not considered the 4% because it's designated for a particular use. It's only the undesignated that is restricted to the 4%.
John, as you've been here a month and you've talked with Greg and this came up and we found the 2.7 instead of the 2.2, just give the board a feel of where we look and what you think we are.
I think the financial statements look really well. I understand Mr. Myler's concern, and there's validity, there's legitimate concern there. But I think what we're doing is we're trying to attempt to meet that concern in a way that doesn't shock the system. As we start to kind of right size doing this, you have to understand, and we talked a little bit about this at one of the board workshops, it will be a little bit of a philosophical shift because the way that we've operated, and when I say we, I'm talking about school districts in the state. It's just not a lame conversation. The way we operate is we do have fund balance, and we do have the monies that sometimes are appropriated at the end of the school year to different things. Because once our budget is approved, we have no way of going back and getting money. So there's no doubt there's budgeting strategies that are different than you would have in a company or corporation. As we start to tighten up that fund balance accessibility, our ability as a district to operate and to purchase things or to add programs or to address issues and concerns that may come up from a special ed perspective, they're going to be a little bit more difficult. So it's a cultural shift on the way we do business, and that's a conversation with the athletic program, with fine arts, with everything that we tend to have money for, when things come up. That will have a different look down the road. So I think we have to kind of grow into that. So as we're kind of right-sizing, I think we're on the right track. The question is, how quickly do you want to get there, and how tight do you want to keep your finances? There's something that will drip on the board right now that I think, in the midst of everything that's going on, that we'll have to consider towards the end of this school year, is to create another facilities project reserve. We're pretty well tapped out with some of the things we've done. It will take time to replenish a reserve. We can determine what's the appropriate balance of that reserve, whether it's $5 million, $8 million, $3 million. But we need to start talking about that today so that we can start funding that over the next 3 or 4 years, so that in 5 or 6 years from now, when we have to do some more major renovations to our facilities, we all know that we have Ontario Elementary, right? That's one of our older buildings. We know there's work down the road. So again, it's being, fiscally responsible, and sometimes that fund balance can be used within the appropriate guidelines of the state, can be used to help fund some of those reserves. So I think we really are in a good place. And I will also say that my previous jobs, we were hit with the same type of audits on based on reserves and fund balances. And I think all districts are kind of moving in understanding that. The tax cap has also helped, force districts to look at financing a little bit differently. So to answer your question, I think we're in a really good place. I think we're moving in the right direction. I would caution us to move too quickly to stunt programs and development that we have going on here. And again, I think we have to be fiscally responsible in terms of how we're going to maintain our facilities. Because 3 years from now, 5 years from now, John's going to be gone, Greg's going to be gone. We have a responsibility to leave the district in a better shape than it was when we got here. So that's how I answer that question. I think we're on the right track. I don't think that we're doing anything that's inappropriate or that's. I think we'll continue to do a better job narrowing our budgeting, and we got to come to a point where we feel we got to get to the point where the board feels there will be a point where I would hope the board would say this. We don't want to go any lower than this. We don't want to jeopardize, the quality of education that we're providing kids. And it's just not the education; it's the facilities, it's the uniforms. It's like I say, take a look at Western Iroquois right now. They're not in they're not in a good spot, and you just don't want to be there.
I'd like to follow up on something you said here, because I know it came up a year ago about coming up with another facilities reserve, and I know that it came up a year ago, literally almost to the day. During a public comment, and now here we are a year later, and we've had some conversations around that topic. We should get moving on that topic. We should move forward on that sooner than later because of what you just said. We all know that is the reality staring us in the face, and we shouldn't drag our feet much. I'm not sure how the process goes, but however it happens, we need to press the gas pedal a little, I think.
Also keep in mind what Greg's trying to do to kind of relieve our reliance on reserves is very important, because a reserve is a one-time push into your budget. So if you take $1 million from reserves to maintain your budget for this school year, then next year you have to come up with that $1 million someplace else. Okay, and really the only other place to come up with it is through other reserves or raising your levy or reduce expenditures. So you want to use the right blend of all of those things. But you have to remember when you keep pushing reserves in, that's what pushes districts and makes districts insolvent. And there are a few that have actually bellied up in the last since our recession.
We also have to be concerned of the tax money we get.
Sales tax?
Sales tax money.
That's a good point.
It's going to continually be a battle every year.
Yes. And
what's that represent? It's $850,000.
835 or $850,000 is the.
Well, what percentage of our budget does that represent? About 4?
I'm not sure as a percentage, Dennis, but we budget 835 of the 44.5 million that comes from sales tax, and if the decision was ever made that would be taken away, then we'd have to find another source. mean, so looking at this year's scenario, the entire tax cap, if that would happen, the entire tax cap would have pretty much been used up just to supplant that loss of revenue. Don't even talk about what's happening with the retirement systems or health insurance or giving staff a raise. So therein lies the dichotomy of that battle. It's always been an important one.
The other monkey wrench is that the pilot with Gannett is up in 1 year. And that is large dollars for the district. So.
So we would ask the board, are there any more questions? We would ask you to approve this revised revenue sheet before, on the consent agenda, we'll be asking you to approve the levy. And just a quick discussion about the levy. The tax rate is slated to go down 2 cents. I know at budget time, we had projected it to be about 9 cents, but actually some of the assessments in our towns went down. Ontario's assessment went down, Macedon's went down, Penfield's went down, Walworth and Williamson went up, and Webster stayed the same. So we thank Dennis for helping keep the low numbers.
And Carla.
But they're in, the numbers we looked at budget time were estimated, but therein lies another, we don't control the assessments. They're just they're a factor, they're variable in a formula, but it has a big impact on where we end up. So, there's another thing that's you have to be careful. So we're pleased that our rate's going down. We projected 9 cents, it's actually going to be 2.
Now, the actual resolution, though, comes under the consent.
The actual resolution for adopting the levy comes under, but we would ask the board to adopt this revised revenue schedule now.
Okay. Could I have a motion to adopt the revenue schedule? Phil, a second. Dennis, any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
You can stay here and ask Bob to join you at this time?
Okay.
Next on the agenda is the Facilities Preservation Project update. Bob, welcome.
So tonight, we'd like to give you, as we round into the middle of August, an update on our Facilities Preservation Project. With us, excuse me, we have Jim Wasley, who's with Chase Construction, our construction manager. Bob Miller is our director of facilities. So there's a lot happening. You can see some boards up, you can see some windows going in, but I'll let these gentlemen give you the update, and then you can have an opportunity to ask any questions. Gentlemen?
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Ben.
As you can see, we still have a little bit of work to do as we drove by any of the buildings. In this particular building, the windows, we got a little behind on. We found some undiscovered asbestos caulk that we had to go back and re-clean. And when we did that, that set us behind a little bit, about a week behind. But the Flower City Glass has been working 10-hour days and working Saturdays to try to make up that schedule, and we really don't see a problem with the windows being installed. They may not be perfect, there may be some things they have to do on them, but all the windows in all the buildings should be installed by the time school starts. This building in particular is probably the worst. Middle school is just about done, or about 95% done. OP is about, I would say, a good 80% done. So we got a little ways to go on the windows, but we don't anticipate any problems with the windows. Here at the high school, if you walk down the floors, you see some have tile, some don't. We still have probably half the building furniture still in the gym. The flooring company has stepped it up. It looks like they should at least hand another portion of the building over to us early next week for us to be able to get the wax on, get the furniture back in the rooms. The kitchen's another big one we're going to come down to the line on, and that's really with all the buildings, Freewell and the middle school. Right now, they're putting in ceilings, and the hoods were hung today, the dishwasher exhaust hoods, so that made room for the company to come in and start putting the ceilings up. So they're starting to come together. But it's going to be a little tight. We're anticipating all of that to come together. Concession stand is on schedule. We don't anticipate that being delayed at all. We anticipate that being ready for the first game. They have been really manning up on that, making sure that it will be the case. So right now we're looking about the 29th of that, 29th of August for that to be ready.
What did we end up having to do in there?
I'm sorry?
What did we end up having to do in the concession stand?
Really what we ended up doing is we ended up taking out all the floor, all the slabs, inside and out, digging down in interior walls, digging down 4 feet or all the way to the base of the foundation, filling that entire structure with stone.
Right, taking out the clay.
Yep,
slab.
no, I understand.
Filling it with stone, and right now we have all the slabs poured, and the interior walls just about all the way up. I went out and looked at today. They're right to the top of the truss, or right to the bottom of the trusses. They still have to fill it all the way up to the top of the trusses, but it's really coming out good. I mean,
Did we do anything for the drainage?
Yes, they put around drains on the inside and outside. So we don't anticipate ever having a freeze problem out there anymore. So, but if we get done on the 29th, it gives us about 6 days before our first game. I know there's boosters out there that are champing at the bit to get in that thing, and we're gonna get them there. And, we'll have everything set up and hopefully have a first good football game with our new concession stand.
I was here on Saturday using some of our athletic facilities, and there was a pretty good sized crew out there working on that concession stand. So I knew somebody had put some pressure on someone, because they don't normally like to work on Saturdays.
No, they're a committed bunch right now.
We've had quite a few of those pressure discussions, yes.
I'm just curious, after Dennis had the idea last meeting, did we end up putting a conduit underneath the...
Yes, we did. We also did that at Freewell. When we had that parking lot out, we put 2 conduits out, one for data, one for power. Sometime in the future, hopefully, we'll think about putting maybe an electronic sign out there or something.
Yeah, it's good to have it in there now.
Yeah, that was the time to do it, no doubt. With the elementary building at OE, the office renovation is going well. Right now, it's all boarded. They're going to start doing the finishing in there. That's another one that'll probably get onto the wire. Over at Freewell, the Cubbies. The Cubbies really are coming out nice. And I think the teachers that were in that building, when we talked to them about it, had reservations of how much room that would take up and what that would do to the classroom, like anybody would do when you're messing with their space. But what it did do is it created kind of a nice little space for a one-on-one. I mean, it made a nice little area where you can work with students one-on-one. So I think most of them will be surprised at how nice it did come out. All the fire alarms are in the OE, Freewell. They're working on the pull stations here and working on the middle school. All those life safety factors will be ready for school starts. PA systems are just about done. We're going to be going down to the wire, as we normally do when we do projects, but I think we'll be all right. My staff is ready to work Labor Day weekend. I think we probably will be. But again, we'll be ready to open.
How does it affect the teacher's ability to get into the classrooms and get them set up prior to the kids?
We're not really trying to slow anybody down as long as they have furniture in the room. This building's going to be a little hard. There are some rooms that we did last year that they're able to get into, but like I say, we got about half a building's worth of furniture in our gymnasium right now, ready to go back in, just waiting for the floors to get done.
Well, it's my understanding that that's one of the reasons we're opening on Thursday this year instead of like Wednesday or Tuesday, was to give teachers 2 days to get their room set up before the kids came, Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yes.
And I just was wondering, is there any way that, like that Tuesday night or Wednesday night before school starts, is there any way that we could see some of the, take a tour, put our hard hats on that were given to us last year, and see, you know, if anybody was interested. I'd like to see, you know, I don't want to go through every building, every nook and cranny, but I think it would be nice if we had a bus tour and just kind of walk through some of the high points, some of the big things, so that if something comes up when school starts, we at least have some idea of
Little visual.
what they're talking about. You know, go look at the new, like OE office, the Cubbies at Freewell. I'd like to see the kitchen here. I'd like to see the concession
Could give the
stand.
concession stand a test run with hot dogs, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
At the end,
Get a crew out there to cook us a couple, you know, things.
Chase got some employees to cook.
You know, pick something from each building to take us around and show us. I mean, it can be optional, but I'd really like to see it before school.
You're more than happy to.
Before the kids start.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
It would be.
Carla wants us to get our building tours over in one night.
Well, it would be a way of at least checking and seeing, you know.
Keeps us informed.
Well,
Zero
and I
money,
think,
though.
yeah, and also so that we know, especially I think in this building, if this is the tough one for the teachers to get ready, what they're really faced with at the beginning of the
Well,
school
we
year.
plan on having everything in the classrooms by Monday of that week. So when they come in Tuesday, I mean, that's the plan. And my staff will, I mean, we're ready to work all weekend to make it happen.
I don't know, is anybody interested in
I am.
doing
I think
something?
it's a good idea.
Yeah, good idea.
Tuesday or Wednesday, is there a night that's better? Like Tuesday maybe?
Doesn't matter.
We can kick
Tuesday.
it.
Why don't you let us,
Oh,
Yeah, we'll
Wednesday.
kick that around.
I can't
why
do
don't you let us work with Bob and Greg and come up, you know, with a couple dates or times, and, you know, and get them out for you and see. Like I say, whoever's interested, we can.
I know some of us, is the opening for staff, your opening, is that Tuesday morning?
September 2nd, yes.
That's Tuesday morning.
September 2nd.
Oh, it
Because
is.
I know some of us will plan to be there and then get to work or whatever. I know I can't stay much more than just for a little bit in the opening.
Well, there's development day too.
That's
That's Wednesday, probably.
That's
the week before, isn't it?
That's next week. The new student, or the
Oh,
new
the new
teacher?
teacher, that's next week.
New staff, yeah.
Next week?
Yeah,
It's what?
Tuesday,
Wednesday?
isn't it?
Tuesday?
That's Tuesday
Tuesday.
next week.
Tuesday.
right. But you know, some of us are already gonna be here in the morning. Maybe Tuesday would be a good day. I don't know, I know it'll be a long day, but Tuesday or Wednesday, I just would like to see it and maybe work something with Fred so we can have a bus and,
Yep. We can put we can put an announcement out. Whoever's interested, get a number, and from there we can get the right size bus or car. And
I recommend Mrs. Prinzen drive us around. Fred can't.
Might be available.
Any other questions for?
I just have one, just out of curiosity, because I drive by here all the time. And I see that wooden board that all the other windows are in, but there's that one wooden board at the top.
You're very observant. Yeah, that is a window that came in wrong, and we have a panel coming in to replace it.
Okay.
So just a heads up for the board, on the next board agenda, there'll be two large change orders for your approval. The first one was some asbestos that was found in the high school above the main office and the guidance area. It was discovered at the beginning of the project. It was not something that we had pre-planned for, and that all had to be cleaned before they could take the windows out and do any of the wiring in there. So that change order is about, what was it, Jim, about $138,000 to do all that work. Also, when we planned the project, the paving over at the middle school, we're replacing the paving on the side and then the front, but we were not going to replace the north entranceway because we were concerned about the budget. And once the budget came in under budget, it didn't make sense, since that north entranceway was not in the best shape, to have everything be brand new and not have that piece redone. So we directed the contractors to do that. And also, they're reconfiguring the sidewalk and extending the sidewalk and on the connecting road. And part of what was going to happen is there's a difference, and help me with this, there's a four foot?
It was about 3.5 foot
About
difference
3.5
in
foot
elevation.
difference in the elevation from north of the driveway to the sidewalk and where the students would be entering the buses. And we felt that was going to clearly be a safety issue, having that much, in any kind of a wet day, having all that water with that much of a difference. So they have to actually go and dig that out. And there's some unsuitable soil that we believe is underneath there, because as they're driving over it, the dirt is kind of moving underneath. So we anticipate that's going to be probably about $150,000. But apparently, once upon a time, I guess there was a house that was
Yes.
location why that one area is built up the way it is. But clearly, would have been a safety issue once we got the sidewalk.
Right, some tree roots too.
If you know the buses, they pull in and they face the sidewalk. So those were calls we had to make at that point in time when they were there. So you'll see those two large change orders coming, but the budget can support those. We have contingencies in the construction budget, so they should be on the next agenda. But just wanted to let you know that would be forthcoming. But
And the
those were
150
decisions that had to be made.
The $150K covers the sidewalk and the paving of the north entrance?
It covers the paving of the north entrance and leveling the 3-foot difference, and making that a more safe piece. It will also include taking out, we're waiting on the price for the unsuitable soils.
We actually settled all that today.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're good there. And they've made the repairs, and SJB's done all the testing and proof rolling, and we're on schedule to get that paved by our ice cream social is our goal on the 21st.
So they're forming up for the sidewalks today.
Yes.
And hopefully, I don't know if they plan on pouring tomorrow. It looked like they're pretty close to pouring the sidewalks tomorrow, so we're moving along.
It looks like you put new drainage in the front of the middle school for under the parking lot. Is that correct? Is that what I'm looking at?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Is that
we're-
continuing up into a new
Yes.
area too? Is that that drainage system going to continue up into what you're talking about, where the soil is bad and all that? Is that going to continue?
Well, what they did is they brought some drainage from underneath the driveway out into the ditch.
Yeah, that was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, it's going to
just
continue.
Really, just to drain from the gravel.
Yeah, I understand what it's for, and I think that's a very good idea. I'm just wondering if it's going to continue up into the new area where you're doing the elevation changes and
I don't think we added any there.
because if you have unsuitable
Most of
soil
that will drain
instability,
that way.
that would probably help.
Hopefully you've noticed the new windows going in, and the old brown panels are now replaced with glass and...
Now I'm more interested in pavement and dirt and stones and stuff like that. I leave the other stuff to the decorators.
Look, really dresses it up nicely.
Karen's in charge of the windows and Matt's in charge of the
I
drainage.
say, windows aren't decoration, they're insulation, and they keep the
That
heating
too.
bills down.
Jim, I wanted to ask you, we had the issues along the front fascia of the building with the bricks and dripping and water or something, and we were gonna take out and point up, and has that been done?
It has.
And we've had a lot of rain. How's it looking?
Yeah, and Bob and I were talking about that today. We did a good job on that. Welliver, it's just counter flashing is the technical term. For basically taking out the old brick and repairing and adding new counter flashing, so we would be able to control the water that would end up getting behind the brick. But yeah, it's been successful. Interesting enough, we've done a lot during that, Carla. What was kind of cool, we actually got hoses up there and just blasted it before we put the bricks back up just to test it. And in some cases, we found a couple of leaks where we had to really tweak it and had to tear it apart. But we did our due diligence.
But putting a hose up there, you are simulating
Typhoon.
like driving hurricane rain. You're never going to get that much.
Don't
much
say
water
never. Look what
seeping
happened to
through.
Detroit. Don't say never.
We won't have a leak in
But
here.
it was that flashing issue which caused the ceiling in this hallway and all the walls in the auditorium and
It's never flashed
fascia
right to begin
area
with.
to be ruined, and so...
Well, it's a good question, because last year at this time, or actually in the fall, we didn't complete it. We completed the rest of it this spring. So you're right, we're 100% complete with that piece of the project.
And it looks good.
Yeah.
She got bricks now.
Yeah.
Stop.
Any other
Well, I'll
questions
take
or
a
comments?
Oh, thanks.
Bob and Jim, we thank you for your reports tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck on getting everything done.
We'll be around to chat.
So in summary, we'll have hot dogs at the first football game, but everything else is in question.
We have a boomer size in football to throw around, too. Next is some conversation about the New York State School Boards Association convention and board members attending it. This year, the convention's in New York City, and the cost of a hotel room is almost $300 per night. I've not attended this event. I've heard very positive information about the benefits of attending. And generally speaking, I believe that the board should attend as many board member development events as possible. My reservation is with this convention is the cost of the hotel, the registration, and transportation costs. And I'd like to get the sentiment of the board as to whether or not our conference dollars can be better spent by attending regional conferences or other developmental conferences. For example, there's a leadership conference in Rochester sponsored by the New York State School Boards Association on September the 19th, which is a Friday. The cost of attending that is $260 per member, which would be less than one hotel room in New York City. So I'd like to have some discussion tonight about the benefits of attending the State School Boards Convention and how you folks feel about it. So.
I went last year to the one in Rochester. It was close, so drove in there and went for a couple days. Again, cost down in New York City. Maybe we can look at other things there, but in future years, you know, if it's closer, maybe go to the New York State one, because there's a lot more things offered rather than a specific focus on it. And I think it's good to get it back to, we should model that you need professional development, because, you know, people have been afraid because people have been criticized for going and getting professional development. But if we use our money wisely so that the teachers feel comfortable, so the administrators feel comfortable going on to get professional development, because it's important as long as we budget for it. We need to, you know, let the community know that's important for people to get that, especially in these changing times with the Common Core and that. We just need to make sure that we don't go wild with it, you know, and make sure that everybody gets what they need. But I think it can start with us.
What do you think of the content of when you went last year?
I thought it was good because you can get a variety of different things. You can pick and choose. There was so much there. And another good part of it was you could go in and print out anything you wanted from the other ones to get some information too. That was a good aspect of that.
Yeah, Ron, I went last year as well, and having been my first year on the board and my first conference, there was so many options to choose from that I actually wish it was longer. And I would say that I got a lot out of it. And I certainly wouldn't want to be the one to suggest that nobody go to it. But I do think that being fiscally responsible, even if it was Albany or Syracuse, I would maybe lean towards it being a good idea for even myself in my second year or anybody else to go. But having been part of a couple 4-county school board association trainings, we all know about the School Board U that's out there. MCC is constantly having courses available. There are so many other good options close by that you can drown yourself in board training and not do the conference. But I do think it was fabulous.
If we did want to send, say, one person, is there any reason they have to stay at the $300 a night hotel?
That's a good question.
It's when you've gone to conferences, and I'm sure you have, Karen, it's just nice to get up in the morning, get your shower, and know you're there. You don't have to, get a cab and to get to wherever the conference is and find your way in the hotel. You're already there. So there is some, aspect to being in the right place at the right time. But if somebody I don't think it's imprudent if we, is that the right word? Imprudent. If we say, does someone want to go? Can someone go? And pay for them to go, because they can get the wealth of information and share it with the rest of us. I don't have a problem with that if somebody did want to go, but, you know, in past years, I know, you know, there were conferences that were very local and, you know, within an hour, and people stayed overnight and everybody had their own room, and that to me is not being fiscally responsible. But to send one person, or, I don't have a problem with that at all. And I don't think the community would either. They know we're not seasoned board members.
There are 2 hotels recommended for the conference, so I assume, and I don't know this for sure, but I assume that the convention center is very close to these 2 hotels.
Is it at the Javits Center?
I'm not,
No?
I don't remember where it is.
Okay.
I just looked at the hotel rates, and both hotels were very close to $300, so.
Actually, for New York, that's not really
I was going to
all
say,
that
my
bad.
experience has been, and I've been to the New York conference many times, even if you get away from the convention, the rates are still pretty high. And as Carl was saying, then your transportation becomes a cost. So if you got to grab a cab, you know, short of using the subway, what you save maybe on that room would be negligible by the transportation. But it is a costly venture in New York City. I think the reason they rotate it is to make it more regional. So I'm sure it's due, the major events due to probably come back upstate next year, probably either Buffalo, Syracuse, or Rochester, and those give you some other options.
I agree with Carl. I think if people want to go, it's something we could consider, but there are good options.
Well, why don't we leave it that if somebody's interested in going, to let John and Kathy know. Personally, I would like to attend the Leadership Academy that's going to be held here in Rochester. And if anybody else is interested in that, I have a brochure on it. I'd be glad to
It's really a
pass
Friday?
it
I
around.
thought it was a Saturday.
No, it's a Friday.
Somebody else said they wanted to go to this. Was it Jerry?
So if you would let Kathy and John know, we'll deal with it that way.
Yeah.
I got it at home.
One of the things that I wanted to bring to the board's attention is the opportunity for the board to actually present at a conference. So I would ask the board to think now, down the road, if you see something that as a board you're doing well, or that you feel you can share with other boards, that's a good thing. So, but it just doesn't happen. You know, as we go through this year, and you know, there may be something that we do that works out really well, and you say, you know what, this might be something that we can share with other boards. And it's also a way to be recognized, to get some better costs, because you sometimes get breaks when you present. And over the years, I've presented with a couple different boards for different topics that they felt were appropriate and that they did that they felt were worth sharing with other boards. And it's this board certainly, I think, would probably have some good things to share over the next year or two. So it may not be something that happens immediately, but if you don't start thinking about it, it typically won't happen.
Okay.
Next on our agenda, and it is an action item, is I'd like to have a motion to appoint and identify Scott Bishoping, District Superintendent of Schools, Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES, as search consultant for the position of Superintendent of Schools for the Wayne Central School District at no compensation, and we agreed to reimburse the Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES for incidental costs occurred during the search process. Could I have a motion to that effect? Karen, could I get a second? Pam? Discussion? Dennis and Pam, I'm not sure how much you were in on, but when we as a board decided that we would initially appoint an acting superintendent, and then that we would seek an interim superintendent, we turned to Mr. Bishoping for help and assistance. I was impressed by his performance during that search and the quality of the candidates he provided for our consideration. While that search process was going on for an interim, at the request of President McTighe, I reached out to Alan Berry and School Leadership LLC and Howard Smith about searches they had done, and the searches they had done recently, including one for Fairport, Silver Creek, Niagara Wheatfield, and Frontier. I also spoke with Mike Ford, who used to be assistant superintendent at Wayne Central Schools and who left Wayne to go to Mid Lakes as superintendent. Mike is now retiring, but he is joining the Warner School at the University of Rochester. And as part of the Warner School of Education, they are doing superintendent searches. So I spoke with Mike about superintendent searches that they had done recently, including one at Kenton near Buffalo. I also had a conversation with Joyce Like, who was on the board at the time of the last superintendent search, and they had used Vincent Capola for that search. I also talked with Timothy Kremer, who is the Executive Vice President of the New York State School Boards Association. The New York State School Boards Association no longer does superintendent searches because what was happening is they would go out and do a search, and one board would be happy, and the board where the superintendent left would be dissatisfied and would be unhappy, so they have stopped doing searches. But he did provide some valuable information to us as a board about the process of searching. So we're at the point where we need to appoint somebody to conduct our search. And so I would like to open it up for the rest of the board for their discussion and their viewpoints.
I'll start. When we worked with Scott, plus I asked that question, what does it cost using the BOCES, and that was a service provided for us. And some of the other search consultants charge decent rates, and if it's a service we have provided, I couldn't see why we shouldn't use somebody that was cost efficient.
And I like the idea that Scott's objectives and our objectives align, because he has to work with whoever our new superintendent is the same way we do, as opposed to he's done when the person takes a new job.
Yeah, got a little skin in the game.
Yes.
I have a question that I'm not really sure about. Hiring a consultant, obviously, Scott would be my choice. Do we need that to look within our own district, a consultant? I mean, I think, looking at the past and seeing what's happened in our district, and I've been around it for a while, I think that's maybe where we should look first, is inside our own district for a superintendent, and before we start looking elsewhere. I mean, that's just my own personal feeling. I don't know if we should do that or if it's possible. I just personally think that we should look at the people that we have running our district now. They're all, I think we have enough confident people out there.
Well, I agree with you, Dennis, but they're not excluded from applying at all.
I know they're not excluded, but
they're included in the
I would
process.
like our main focus to be on somebody from our district that already knows our district, knows what our district's been through.
Well, we also have more experience with them, too.
That too. And I mean,
Plus with
I see, on our last superintendent, I see us missing somebody that I thought would have worked very well, that is a superintendent.
Leroy.
Huh? Leroy, yeah. And I think that would have been a much better fit than what we had. And I don't think we'd have went through the problems we went through. So, I mean, rather than grabbing somebody we don't know, how about somebody that we do know?
And I don't actually, at this point, I don't agree or disagree with you. I wasn't here for the last superintendent search, and I don't know the person that you're referring to. But I think I'd like to do one search, and what I'd hate to do is do an internal search, say, you know what, this just isn't going to work, and have to start over. If we do one search and Scott's essentially free, and we bring in all the candidates at once, the best, do we want the best internal candidate, or do we want the best candidate, whether they're internal or not? And we can do it once, pick the best person. For all we know, that could absolutely be somebody internal. And I fully expect several internal people to apply for the position. But why limit our options?
I understand that. And
we had this discussion when we were talking about the process we were going through, and one of the things that we want to make sure we do is, I believe we will have internal candidates who will apply. I believe we have very qualified people who will apply. But we need to make sure that when we select the next superintendent, that person is free from subject criticism by saying, why didn't you go outside and compare to other candidates? I mean, if it turns out that the candidate is internal and we do a full search we will have, I hope we will have wide support for that person. I would hate to see us select a candidate and then have somebody say, well, why didn't you? And by going through the search process, I think we guarantee a certain amount of community and/or board support for the next superintendent.
Now, on this search, are we going to be using any public committees for this? I mean, I know in the past when we hired Mr. Havens, there was a public and there was a student participation in it, where the students actually interviewed the candidates. And
I think that's what Scott will, when we meet with him and we give him a layout of what we want in a superintendent, our timeline, or he helps us with a timeline, he'll say to us, now you need to find your groups that will, interview your, you get people from PTSA, you get people with children, you get people without children, you get, staff members, you get administrators, you get board members, you get a little bit of everybody on the different interview committees, and we just start that process that way.
He will be, in essence, our employee, and he will help us search for the best candidate based upon the outlines and the timeframes that we give him. Now, he has a timeline that he would like us to follow.
Right.
Being appointed tonight being the first step in that direction. But yes, I think you'll find that there'll be a lot of community involvement.
yeah. I just don't want it to be perceived that we're just jumping out and looking for somebody, anybody but somebody from here. And I think that's kind of the perception that the public got on the last hiring.
I think one of the things, if I can add, that the search consultant can do first and foremost is help the board identify what it is that you want in a superintendent, which is the first step. At any given time in a district's history, the superintendent might need different strengths and characters depending on where that district is. One might be building, one might be reducing, one might be a new school district, one may have different issues and problems that you're looking to address with that candidate. So I think the first thing, which is good whether or not you go internal or not, is really trying to understand what it is the district needs and is looking for. And I think that's what the first thing your consultant will do is work with not only the board, but with probably some community groups to try to understand and identify what are the characteristics they're looking for at this particular time in date for this district. And then match that against your candidate pool as you go further. So it's more than just bringing people in. I think it's trying to help us identify what we need right now. And I think that Scott will do a great job bringing you through that process and kind of identifying those characteristics, and then bringing in the pool that best meets those.
I think it's going to be, we need to be aggressive in the timeline. Scott's already mentioned that to us, because there's a lot of people who have just retired. So there's going to be a lot of good candidates out there going to lots of different places. So it'd be in our best interest to make sure that we do this as quickly as we can. But I think we're going to have to add some extra meetings in to, to take advantage of getting things set up, and then, getting those committees going. And
based on the tentative timeline that I've seen, I think Scott wants time with us next month.
Okay.
That's fine.
Any other discussion? All in favor to appoint? Any opposed? Thank you. Next is I would like to have a recommendation to appoint Dennis Landry and Phil McTighe as liaisons to the Walworth and Ontario Town Boards respectively. Could I get a motion to that effect? Matt? Karen, second. Discussion?
I think one of the things that I suggested these liaisons, I think it's very important that we reach out and develop strong relationships with both our towns. Phil recommended that I stop and meet with John Smith, which I did. I'm looking forward to meeting the supervisor for Walworth moving forward. John and I both talked about creating a regular meeting probably once a month, where we would just touch base, and I'd like to try to get the same meeting with the Walworth Town Supervisor. That would be in addition to your liaison. So you guys would be liaisoning at board meetings or from the towns or whenever you have opportunity to touch base. But I'd also like to maintain a relationship at the top level so that if there's any questions or concerns that we can communicate together effectively. So I do think it's a very valuable step.
I know John personally, and I ran against Patty.
That's good to know.
And 2 of the board members on our town, I got elected, so. And I used to be the chair of the Democratic Committee.
Yeah, he's different.
Pretty much know me.
So,
Keep that quiet.
yes.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? 2 board meetings and 2 mistakes. I skipped something on the agenda. I hope that I hope my track record doesn't continue.
It's 100%.
It is 100%. I would like to have a motion to appoint Jeremy Eaton and Carla as district representatives to Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES, the Board of Education. Tim was first, Karen was second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
I approve.
Next is the consent agenda. A consent agenda is part of a full meeting agenda in which routine items are placed and voted on with little or no discussion. Generally, consent agenda items are considered self-explanatory and uncontroversial. Examples of consent agenda items include approval of committee and previous board meetings, adoption of agendas, CSE, CPSE recommendations, personnel items, minor routine changes in policy or procedures, document updates, and standard contracts that are used regularly, such as for transportation. Items on a consent agenda can be discussed, but should first be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular meeting agenda. The request to remove an item from the consent agenda is honored. It is not subject to a vote. At this time, could I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Carla, could I get a second? Pam, any discussion?
Okay. So I do have a question about it. Am I supposed to ask to have it amended?
Yep. No, go right ahead.
Greg or John, regarding the school lunch prices, I just want to make sure, and again, this is what I certainly don't want to do is give the perception I'm questioning anything, just for my own knowledge. Last year, we operated it at a loss of $12,000. So we're raising the rates X amount. It's going to raise us about $9,250. I haven't done the math. But because of some retirements, we're expecting the cost on the district to go up another $2,500. So I probably should have done my math, but whatever that number is, $3,500, $4,000. So it looks like we're still projecting a $4,000 loss, even though we're raising the rates. My question would be, shouldn't we raise the rates enough to cover the loss? But before I give you the floor, I'll possibly answer my own question. And then I also see that we're explaining that we have a $62,000 surplus. So are we digging into our surplus to make up that small number? Is that, just again, for my own understanding?
No. The reason, Phil, for our recommendation is you run the danger if you try to recoup all of the deficit by increasing lunch prices, it could have an impact on participation. So even though prices go up, if less kids buy lunch, then you kind of defeated it. So what Mrs. Wilson and I always talk about is the balance between raising prices, keeping things affordable. We also will have a brand new setup in the kitchen where students actually come in and there'll be 2 different lines and they loop through the lines and then come out to a cashier. So she feels very positive that could have an impact and increase our participation. So, we never plan to lose money, but we think that the rest of the gap that's there we can possibly make that up by increased participation and, you know, with the new setup, you know, serving more students. And she's got a lot of neat ideas, and I think you'll be pleased when you see the setup of the cafeteria. But so there's a balance there.
Okay.
So we never really plan on it, but if we do, then we do have the fund balance. Our fund balance used to be about 3 times that amount. Little by little, we worked that down. There were some losses, there were some purchases that we made, but you know, we don't want to use fund balance every year to plug a hole.
Okay.
Most school districts lose money in their
Yeah, and we talked about
lunch
this during the
program.
budgeting process.
A
We
lot
actually
of them
talked
do.
about it.
Because it, just like Greg said, you raise the price, you're still paying everybody, whether 2 people buy lunch or 200 people buy lunch, and you're still purchasing the food and the equipment and the utilities and all that. So everything is still the same, and you got to kind of figure what can the community absorb. Can a parent, you know, another 15 cents a year? But if you went 50 cents, they'd say, hey, find the peanut butter in the closet.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
So, you know, we feel pretty good about this recommendation. 12,000, as Carla said, in comparison to a lot of other districts, they've lost 50 and 60, and we've never had that type of a loss.
Okay.
That's a tribute to Nikki, but
I went through the experience when I was a building principal in Pennsylvania. We did, in addition to our high school, and had an opportunity to remodel our cafeteria. And we basically set up serving stations, very similar to what Wayne is doing. And we found an increase in participation as a result of that, more than offset some of the costs involved. So hopefully that will happen here.
Okay. Thanks.
good question, though. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
I'd just like to add as a point of order, under regular business, approval of agenda and alterations, typically that's when, if you want to pull an item out of your consent agenda for discussion, we would alter the agenda there and then have the discussion when we get to consent agenda. And if there is no discussion, then there's typically no discussion for consent agenda. That's why we move that across. So just a point of order in the future. So if we see something there, you just let us know at the alterations stage, and then we would note it, discuss it, and then do that. But thank you. That's a good question.
Do we have any committee reports? I know that the committees have not started meeting yet, but will start in September. Do we have any reports?
Well, audit committee, I'd just like to state that meeting set for Thursday, September 18th at 5:30, and in the district conference room if it's available.
Yeah, and the policy committee, we're going to be meeting the same evening or afternoon as the first board meeting each month, from 4 to 5 in whatever room Kathy can help us to get.
So it's the first meeting of the month.
First board meeting of the month. It's the same day, but 4 to 5, so we can accommodate
Yep, gotcha.
the communications meeting that happens afterwards.
Any other? Jeremy's not here tonight. I believe that Jeremy's established a schedule for the communications committee, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But we will get that in our minutes somehow. Under board president comments, I would just like to say that with the resolution adopted earlier tonight appointing Mr. Bishopping to lead the search for a new superintendent, that we are starting on a journey. We're starting on a process that will have a significant impact on the Wayne Central School District. We've heard a number of suggestions following the last search, and while only the Board of Education has the authority to hire the superintendent, it can involve stakeholders in that process. And I believe that as a district, you will be hearing from us about that process and about the role that we perceive the public will take in that process. So, thank you. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Matt. A second is Dennis. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for attending. Good evening.